With the Rampardos theorem, we explored how brute power is far from the only thing a Pokemon needs to be a successful offensive threat. With the Bastiodon theorem, we explored how enormous defensive stats don't necessarily make for good walls. With the Quagsire theorem, we explored the inverse, how a Pokemon doesn't even necessarily need to have any high stats at all in order to be great. In this video, however, we're exploring speed, which a good portion of you thought would follow this negative trend. Well, actually, speed may very well be the exception to this idea. A Pokemon with great speed and not much else can still often find a small niche. Even if such Pokemon are generally bad, they're going to have something they're able to do. And if they can do it fast, they can have use found for them. This, as well as the fact that many great Pokemon tend to be great in large part thanks to their speed stat, is testament to the importance of moving first. And that's why speed might be everything, otherwise known as the Deoxys theorem. But before we do that, I need to talk to the guys in the room. So 93% of you, because this video is sponsored by Manscaped.com. You ever slack on your hygiene below the belt because the shavers out there just aren't cutting it? Pun intended, sorry, not sorry. Well, it's time to switch to Manscaped's flagship trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. This is like the easiest trimmer I've ever used. It's quick, precise, and it's even waterproof, so you can groom your lower region in the shower and say goodbye to the bathroom mess on the floor. The Lawnmower uses a cutting-edge ceramic blade designed to reduce grooming accidents and a 4000K LED spotlight when you need to be more precise. It even has a travel lock feature so it doesn't accidentally go off in your suitcase. Just hit the button 3 times to lock it and hit the button 3 times again when you need to use it. You can get the Lawnmower 4.0 and the Weed Whacker 2.0 to trim your nose and ear hair in the Performance Package 4.0 Hygiene Bundle, which also includes the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and the Crop Reviver Ball Toner Spray. Manscaped even threw in a pair of free anti-chafing boxers and a Shed travel bag. And if you want to support the channel and get a trusted trimmer by more than 8 million men worldwide, you can use my promo code FALLSWIPE or click the link in the description below and get 20% off plus free international shipping on your next Manscaped purchase. So unlike the top 5 structure of our theorems, in this video we'll be taking more of a free-form approach and exploring a wider mix of Pokemon. There are those that, despite generally being quite poor, or at least outclassed to some degree, use their speed to squeeze out a niche unexpectedly. And then there are those that, while excellent overall, are largely as good to the extent that they are because of their speed. Many of the best also tend to be among the fastest, and often in their dominance through speed, create niches for other Pokemon based on outspeeding them. We'll start with Raikou in Generation 2 OU, universally regarded as one of the tier's premier special walls. However, it's not just its HP, special defense, and typing that make it as rock solid and consistent as it is in this role. It's its speed as well. Raikou is one of the fastest Pokemon in GSC, and when it appears, it tends to be the fastest in any given game. But you might wonder, isn't GSC defined by bulk alongside the healing of rest, often accentuated by sleep talk? What does speed have to do with this? Well, being able to rest before the opponent hits you is potentially game-breaking. If Raikou is at 5% and facing a Zapdos, it's still home free because it's fast enough to heal before it gets a hit again. But if Blissey is at 5% and facing Zapdos, it's out of luck since it won't be able to get its healing move off despite being far bulkier. This is absolutely game-breaking and gives Raikou a ton more flexibility. For example, it can switch in against threats even if it's in 2-hit KO range of their attacks, since it'll be able to heal before it gets hit by that second move. Raikou's great speed also plays into its capabilities as an offensive threat, of course, but that huge special attack and electric stab, which helps it function on offense and defense alike, wouldn't be nearly as valuable or as applicable as it is in so many situations if it weren't for its speed. Speed is what lets its user pivot around threats and play around them in unconventional ways, as this complicating of gameplay being a big part of what makes Pokemon interesting and rife with possibility, as opposed to straightforward Pokemon meets its counterlines. Speed allows Raikou to suddenly help finish off a belly drum Snorlax that's been passed in agility, as Raikou is so fast that it outruns even +2 speed lacks. Speed is so important in creating and enabling defensive potential in Pokemon that even one of Raikou's most prominent partners, Skarmory, uses it constantly as well. Skarm is, of course, not known for its speed, but rather its insane bulk, and even then, its speed is a huge part of what makes it so effective defensively. Being faster than Machamp, Marowak, and Exeggutor is utterly pivotal in being able to stave them off. Skarmory being faster even forces forces the one Exeggutor that can threaten it, the HP Fire variant, to remain healthy if it wants to actually do its job. Yeah, you can hit it with that first HP Fire, but if you're not healthy enough to withstand its faster drill pecks in return, then you're not getting the job done. Scar's speed is so important in its matchup against Machamp and Marowak that supporting the latter two often involves just paralyzing Scar, not weakening it necessarily, but just taking away its speed so that they can bludgeon it with boosted attacks before it can respond. To expand on the unusual example of the Raikou versus agility past Drumlax tactic, this kind of unconventional methodology of checking big threats becomes a common tactic at high level play across all manner of generations and tiers. Players often use faster Pokemon to switch into threats that they don't truly answer safely in their entirety. So long as they avoid the one move that will beat them as they switch in, they'll be able to use their speed to grab momentum back. For example, in Generation 4, one would be hard pressed to call Gengar a counter to Infernape. However, the only move Infernape might use that actually KOs Gengar is its Fire Stab. So if you can draw another move from Infernape, such as the very spammable close combat, Gengar can enter. There's a degree of risk involved, sure, but this is a tactic used against Pokemon that are difficult to truly counter. This is why speed is so powerful, because it creates opportunities for players to play around threats that don't pack much in the way of traditional hard counters. Few teams pack genuinely safe answers to something as strong as another example from Generation 4, Mixed Dragonite. It's more of a matter of pivoting a faster, resistant Pokemon into one of its moves and chasing it out. Speaking of Generation 4, it was home to one of the best examples of the aforementioned concept of a Pokemon managing to squeeze out a niche of pure speed and not much else. When Baton Pass teams were running rampant, be they full chains or Gliscor Pass, they were constantly in search of an optimal lead, one that would prevent setup from the opponent and enable ideal conditions for the passing. Speed is, of course, a huge aspect of the DPP lead metagame, especially in its relation to the setup stopping taunt. Azelf is usually the premier pure lead in DPP OU, with its huge speed, stealth rock, taunt, and explosion. Aerodactyl is usually worse than Azelf since it lacks explosion, as well as other crucial tools like U-turn, Thunderwave, and dual screens, but what it does have is a faster taunt, which gives it the jump on Azelf. Its speed is so high, in fact, that it can even outrun the Spore from Scarf Breloom, which is used in part because it shuts down Azelf. These elements pertain to the standard DPP metagame, of course, not just Baton Pass, but these leads' high speed and taunt made them go-to options for Baton Pass teams, especially Azelf for its screen support. This, of course, led to the niche of pure speed, that of Electrode. Make no mistake, Electrode is not a good Pokemon, as it's incredibly weak and frail. Even in UU, it's not good in its own right. It only exists as a rain dance supporter. It's of course excellent in that role, thanks to its peerless speed, setup stopping taunt, and tempo setting explosion. OU was a different beast though, until came the time of the great BP wars, which largely involved faster early game taunts. Some Baton Pass players even used a dual screens taunt Alakazam lead to get the jump on Azelf. Electrode, of course, had the fastest taunt outside of Ubers and didn't just find the niche on Baton Pass. It became the style's staple lead. This was so key it overshadowed everything else that Electrode lacked, which you'd usually want from such a lead. It didn't have Stealth Rock and it only had Light Screen, not even Reflect. However, the power of that taunt as well as Light Clay extended Light Screen supporting passers like Gliscor, which were bulkier on the physical side, and even the likes of Thunderwave to completely shut down most opponents, as well as the tempo setting explosion, meant that Electrode was regularly putting in work, because it was going first pretty much always. Electrode's infuriating efficiency was a huge part in what eventually led to Baton Pass getting completely axed from Gen 4. It was too easy to enable the strategy when you were leading off with the fastest Pokemon around. This is the same reason why Deoxys Speed was such a powerful defining force in Ubers for so long, as well as being the best Deoxys form by a significant margin despite not bringing much in the way of bulk or strength. Simply being the literal fastest Pokemon in the game makes for incredible consistency, until you run into mirror matches, of course, but that's just both players recognizing the power of moving first. Speed stats were often maxed out because they were the one stat that you know you can rely on consistently. There are no damage rolls or uncertainties about opposing EV spreads. If your Lucario has max speed, you know it will outspeed even the fastest non-Scarf Heatran. Talk about speed kills. On the subject of speed killing as well as Baton Pass, the two go quite well together, as exemplified most purely by none other than Speed Boost Ninjask, who is already insanely fast to begin with and gets faster just for surviving a turn, which is of course easily enabled by Protect and or Substitute. Now this doesn't get scary in most people's minds unless Ninjask is also able to grab a Swords Dance boost along the way before it passes to a teammate. Indeed, when most players imagine Baton Pass related destructions, they imagine an unbreakable chain with nearly every stat maxed out by the time the recipient recipient comes in for the cleanup, or at the very least, speed and offense is boosted from more fast-paced styles. Think Gliscor passing Sword Stance and agility to Metagross in Gen 4 OU, or Smash passing in Gen 5, or Geomancy passing in Gen 6 and 7. However, as has been demonstrated many times, even passing speed alone wreaks insane destruction. Again, the power of moving first can't be overemphasized. Threats like Oraz OU Manaphy and Mega Heracross are naturally balanced out by their reasonable speed stats and lack of ability to make themselves even faster. Manaphy can at most equip a Select Berry. However, when past speed boost by the likes of Scolipede, these Pokemon were able to slash through entire teams at the drop of a hat. This makes sense though, even as part of enabling the Baton Passer themselves. Baton Passers are infinitely easier to stop when they're not moving fast. This is also why many of the threats that have been banned or nearly banned throughout this generation have not just been powerful, but fast, whether immediately or through a boost. From Gen 4's Dragon Dance Salamence to Gen 5's Sand Rush Excadrill to multiple generations of Speed Boost Blaziken and Rock Polish Landorus Incarnate and Beast Boost Naganadel to the borderline nature of Quiver Dance Volcarona and Shift Gear Magearna. Even the insanely broken Gen 5 OU Genesect was only universally considered busted once it adopted its own Rock Polish set. Of course, there are many Pokemon that are generally much better than Electrode and speed boosting Baton Passers, which also have excellent speed stats, but said speed stats cannot be overrated in their contribution to make those Pokemon as good as they are overall. For example, Generation 5 Latios is one of the most terrifying users of Draco Meter for many reasons. Incredible special attack alongside a slew of valuable resistances, and solid bulk which allows it to switch in. However, the main reason Latios is such a terror is because of how fast it is for how strong it is. Its speed is what enables it to the full extent of its metagame warping effect. It'd be good pretty much no matter what, sure, but if it didn't outspeed Garchomp and Keldeo, not even close. Many of its opportunities come from the fact that it outspeeds so many threats. If it couldn't pivot into Garchomp's Earthquake, or if it had to withstand 2 hits from non-Scarf Keldeo before being able to respond, forget it. It'd just be one of many other strong but manageable threats. To further appreciate the extent of this concept, consider the inverse example. Kyurem Black, peerless in power, but with an incredibly exploitable speed stat that makes dealing with it far easier. In order to outspeed Latios, you need Tornadus, Starmie, Alakazam, or a Choice Scarfer. The options are far more limited. One doesn't have to be as fast as Latios to see this effect in play either. Garchomp's famously trolley-based 102 speed stat makes it particularly excellent because with it, it gets to jump on the slew of base 100s, like Volcarona, that are running around, as well as similar base 101 Landorus Incarnate and Thunderous Therian. In turn, Mienshao had a solid niche in Generation 5, largely because of its base 105 speed, giving it the jump on Garchomp, and of course by extension the Pokemon below Chomp. Mienshao had much more going for it than just the speed, of course, like Stab, High Jump Kick, U-Turn, Regenerator, and fantastic special attack stat from which it could hit and power ice its way through Gliscor and Landorus Therian. But had it not been for its ability to outrun several of the scariest threats in the tier, these traits would have gone wasted, since it'd be far more limited in its ability to put them to use. On the subject of strong wall breakers, they have been a dime a dozen for a long time now, but a development seen in more recent generations, say ever since Team Preview came into effect, has been such wall breakers becoming faster and faster. The trade-off used to be that the strongest wall breakers were not quite slow, but they were hardly Deoxys Speed either. Take examples like Kyurem Black, Tapu Lele, and Hydreigon, which possess searing power and coverage, but don't even hit the base 100 speed mark. However, even simply hitting that base 100 mark makes a world of difference. Mega Medicham is a particularly salient example of a monstrous threat whose obscene power is accentuated by a speed stat higher than that usually given to a Pokemon so strong. There are many other examples, like Mega Charizard Y, Keldeo, Terrakion, Kartana, Greninja, Cinderace. It's not just OU that's been affected by this either. Even Ubers, the metagame which by definition deals in broken threats, has been overwhelmed by this multiple times at this point. For all its other incredible traits, Mega Rayquaza's base 115 speed was what really pushed it over the edge, as outspeeding the Lati twins, who are already considered quite fast, just made it utterly ridiculous. Both forms of Zacian were especially egregious in this regard. In OU, Dragapult is so fast that it often doesn't even need to run as plus speed nature in order to outpace relevant targets, so it can get a nice power boost from a plus attack or special attack nature. The difference, of course, is that even with a boosting nature, Dragapult isn't game-shatteringly powerful. The Zacians have the same exact trait. Speed so far ahead of the rest of the tier, they could run adamant natures instead of Jolly, except they also came with obscene attack stats that were boosted further for just switching in, and they were massively bulky on top of it. If they weren't as ludicrously fast as they were, it might have been a different game, but Game Freak's insistence on overkill there was what pushed them over the edge. Now you might be wondering, where is priority in all this? Well, priority and speed are very much related, but there's so many priority moves that we'd rather give them a video of their own. In conclusion though, the importance of moving first cannot be emphasized enough. Yes, there are plenty of Pokemon and strategies that often couldn't care less about moving second and sometimes even prefer it. See GSC Snorlax and Gen 8 Teleport Slowking as strong examples. But even then, moving first opens up so many opportunities. It created a niche for Electrode and DPP OU of all things, and makes it so that Deoxys Speed has consistently been the best of all of its forms despite not being particularly strong or bulky. Stats aren't everything, but if there's one stat that comes close, it's speed. Thank you for watching everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And in the comments, I want to know, what do you think about the speed stat? Were there any examples that we missed? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.